In this video, I'm going to break down Daniel Priestley's podcast strategy in a way that we can learn from. He does not even have his own show, yet he has had explosive growth in the world of podcasting on shows like The Diary of a CEO. Now, the reason I'm covering Daniel's journey in the first place is because I've gotten to witness it from the first couple appearances that he did that really set this thing off, and he's gotten to achieve remarkable results in a relatively short period of time. And there are things, unfair advantages, strategic plays that go into that, which I think are worth highlighting, and I think we will be able to learn from for our own shows as well. My name is Misbah Haque, by the way, if this is our first time crossing paths. In 2016, I launched my very first podcast out of my childhood bedroom, and within a year, that show landed me my dream job in the Bay Area, getting to coach Fortune 1000 executives, professional athletes, and anybody who was coming back from an injury. That was really my specialty. And I've also gone on to launch shows that have done over 1 million downloads and have gone on to become successful client acquisition channels and, have monetized with sponsorships and all that good stuff too. And so on this channel, my goal is to help you build your own table with podcasting, because the opportunities, the people, the networks that my shows have gotten to get me in front of would never have been possible otherwise. And so I love to help people like yourself achieve that for you and your family. Make sure to check out some of the free resources that I have in the description below, by the way. I think they might be useful in your journey. Now let's get into how I discovered Daniel Priestley in the first place. So the very first episode that I watched of him was on YouTube, and it was on Ali Abdaal's podcast. So I'm a big fan of Ali Abdaal and his show, which that's another show that was really cool to see when they had only like 10K subs on YouTube and the crazy growth that it's had over time. But when he made an appearance on this show, there was something very noticeable and remarkable. So of course, he's a very accomplished and credible person. He's been selling and growing and starting businesses for years now. And so he's somebody who has a lot of real world experience, which I think is great to know, because there are tons of people out there who have this. They just don't have, the digital footprint that maybe mirrors that. But Daniel is somebody who has a lot of great stories, has a lot of experience, but yet he did not come to the episode in a way that felt arrogant. So I think the attitude is another thing to note here. The vibe that the guest makes you feel is very, very important. There are so many multimillionaires and people who have started and sold businesses out there, and they all have different attitudes. Some people prefer this one over the other. And so the thing I will say, when he was on that episode, it was so good because, one, it was long. Ali did a great job of asking questions that people who are listening like me would want to know. Beginner questions, advanced questions, there was a good range of that. And by the way, his next appearance that he did was also on the Ali Abdaal show. So he was kind of this guest that did a great job, crushed it the first time around. People like me were listening to that episode over and over. I've listened to it a couple times, I remember. And then it's like he made another appearance. And so you were like, whoa, Daniel's back, right? So you felt like this guest character that you enjoyed seeing and wanted more of. And what happens when this vibe is created between you and the person you're consuming is you want to support them. You want to consume all the other content that they've been a part of and made. And at that time, there wasn't a bunch of other stuff. There were books that Daniel had written. So I got introduced to his first book. That was awesome. And then I believe the Score app was actually something that had launched right around then. And so the Score app was something that I got signed up for, and I had built my first funnel inside of there. So coming back real quick to the likability portion, because I think that's important. There was something in particular that I still haven't forgotten years later that he said that made me go, I like this guy. And of course, it's a bunch of little things. Sean Puri has said this, where it's like the effect. So if 3 times somebody makes you go, like that's interesting, the 3rd time is often the time where it's like, yep, that's the conversion. I'll sign up for your thing. I'll listen to you. I'll subscribe. I'll buy whatever. And so Daniel had obviously these moments throughout the episode when he was on, because of how many great stories he had and how great he presented and communicated things, which, by the way, huge advantage, right? If you have a lot of sales experience, you're an entrepreneur already, you have been presenting for a long time, you're comfortable maybe being in the spotlight, being on camera, being on stage, and that showed, right? When a guest is able to come on who has all the real world experience, but is not maybe a great presenter or communicator, that destroys the ability for that episode to be good sometimes. And so something to note here is Daniel is a very skilled communicator, and it is trained and developed over time. You can tell that he has sharpened this because of how important it is. But the thing that he said that made me really like him and was the thing that put me over to like, okay, I want to keep up with this guy and I wish him well. I'm excited to see his rise on other pods and all that stuff. So the thing he said was, he was talking about hiring. And when you are first hiring, you got to get who you can. Okay. It's not about waiting to hire until you can afford somebody, pay somebody 6 figures, or you can get the best designer, the best editor that money can buy. It might be you starting with a cousin that you know, or an intern that somebody knows. And so there was this description he gave of like the misfits. Those were the people that he leaned on when he first started any business, really. The people who are very talented, he even said like they might have bad BO, like he had somebody like that, bad body odor and all this stuff. But this person was very skilled and talented in ways that other people have overlooked. And so there was something about that. And then also he even said location, right? He's like, I don't care where you're from, if you're in Pakistan, US, UK, anywhere, it doesn't matter. If you are good, can do what I'm asking you to do, like I'm all ears. And so this attitude that he had towards that was something that I already felt internally, right? And I was already doing. I saw delegation the same way. It was like, look, I know where I'm at right now, I don't have access to the best talent. I don't have the biggest budget for the best talent either, but I do have access to people that can help me along the way. And a lot of them are like me. I resonate with being a misfit. And so that is an example of, again, having stories, having language, knowing who your customer is, gives you this upper hand in terms of the ability to resonate that episode provides. Because if you are set up with these stories and this language and this arc that you can create through a podcast episode, guess what? You're going to win people over. And the thing that's really cool to see here is after he did that on Ali Abdaal's show, the next place that I saw him on was Chris Doe's channel, The Future. So that was another cool one, was because 2 things to note. The episodes he did was in person. So mainly the first couple episodes I remember seeing were all in person. And that is because it gives it this high quality production value type feel. The second thing is that the shows that he went on, right, were with people who he may have already had strategic partnerships with, or he's trying to develop strategic partnerships with them. And so Ali Abdaal is an example, Chris Doe from the Future. It's like they already did the work of having 1 million, 2 million, 3 million people, subscribing and following and interested in this stuff. Daniel is just tapping into what's already there. He has all the resources he needs to start his own if he wanted to, but he didn't do that. Instead, he went to literally just the top couple places until it eventually added up and led to The Diary of a CEO. And what's cool about that is he did share publicly after he went on The Diary of a CEO how there was about €1 million of business that had come through, combined with like the Score app signups, book sales. And the cool thing about that is these books were written years ago, and these books aren't on any bestseller list or anything like that. Well, first of all, they're great, right? Especially if you have consumed Daniel's podcast and you like his stuff, you're like, oh, like I want more of it. How can I get it? The book. And the book is a very personal one-to-one type feel, and there's a lot of value in it. And so I remember just, wow, like the resurgence of something that you've written years ago just by going on the top podcasts. The book sales are crazy because it's a low cost way for people to support you. It's for 10, 20, 30 bucks. People can get access to some of the best information that you've put out because of course it's in a book and it's going to be, everywhere. So there's something about that resurgence or revival of old products, of old things or existing offers. How Score app got an insane amount of signups. Like I was using it before that happened, and it was cool to see, okay, after that happens, like what was the difference? It's the fact that the face of the company, right, the founder was able to go on a podcast, a place where they had tons and tons of his ideal audience. So the perceived value of the books, of the software, anything that Daniel is doing is way, way higher because of these other pods he's been on and gotten to be associated with. Because he's been on Ali Abdaal's, on The Diary of a CEO. Guess what? Now when you go read the book, you're consuming it with a bit of a different frame versus also when you go and consume his YouTube channel. So I remember when he first started publishing there were two channels, Key Person of Influence and the Score App channel. And then I think he may have changed one of them to be his name finally. But it started with one, and it was really him just talking to the camera. And it was awesome because if you have loved Daniel's appearances on other pods, eventually you run out. He has a couple hours of them, but you might run out. And so then you start consuming what else he has. And so when he has his own stuff on his own channel, what that does is you've already developed this base of, even if it's only a couple dozen people, but likely it's a couple hundred or a couple thousand people who know you from all of these appearances, they're excited to support your stuff. They've been waiting for it. And so the other advantage that I want to highlight here, because I like pointing out some of the unfair advantages that these guests I'm breaking down have. Sometimes you may not have that exact advantage, and it doesn't mean that none of it is applicable if you don't have that, but it's good to know that's contributing to some of the success, and we can be aware of that instead of it just being a mystery. So number one is the fact that he's very credible. He's sold businesses, started businesses, has been doing this a very long time. The next advantage is the fact that he has access to capital, right? So he can fly out to places that want him on or to do a live in-person thing. He can also pay if he really wanted to, and if the guest was open to it, pay for a paid collaboration. So I'm not saying that this is what he did, but if he wanted to, he could. So capital really helps. The next thing is he's an author. So he has books, and he pointed out in one of his videos, he points out how about 80% of the people that have been on The Diary of a CEO in the past year or whatever have been authors or have written at least one book. So the books are an advantage because, hey, it's a low-cost product. It proves your credibility and expertise on its own just because you've taken the time to write it. But hey, if people enjoy it, that takes it a step further. And it's a low-cost way for people to support and for him to also gauge, like, hey, I went on this pod. Was it beneficial? Like, I got 10,000 book sales overnight. So they're paying attention to that kind of stuff. And the next unfair advantage is capital when it comes to actually creating your content. So notice how his YouTube videos, he's able to drop and compete 2 or 3 YouTube videos a week on these multiple channels and has done so consistently over time because he's not sitting there editing it himself. That would make no sense. But I did hear him reveal in one of his videos how it's his sister's production company that helps with all of this. So the YouTube videos, what they're going to be talking about, the set and how it looks, where they are, all of that good stuff. So all of these things combine together and make Daniel Priestley somebody that when he went on Ali's pod a couple times, and guess what? People saw how great of an episode it was. It didn't even have to be with millions of views or wow, it created all this growth for Ali, because that may not have been the case. Like, Daniel was not somebody that had a huge following online already that he's bringing to Ali's show. Ali was the one that had the ginormous following. So that's a great example to note too, because sometimes you have, and I point this out when I'm breaking down a guest like that has a huge following already, you know, and not that it discredits them, but it's like, okay, it was easier for you to do that collab, obviously, but it's cool to point out and notice the people like Daniel who didn't have that, but what still allowed him to be desirable as a guest by Ali. And it was the real world experience and credibility that he had developed over the years. So that's something to keep in mind. And so what this did was people now that are inviting Daniel onto the show are inviting because he has great content and great ideas and is going to make them and their show look really good. It wasn't just about, oh, Daniel's a huge guest yet. There was a period of time where he's going to get invited because the information and all that stuff is just so great. It's not just for the following. Now, of course, after the Diary of a CEO and all of these other appearances, people have caught on to, hey, if I have Daniel on my show, he's very credible. People have gotten to know him. He's a face people will recognize. It will kind of bring more viewership or listenership to my show. But it's important to note that it wasn't always like that, right? It was purely the information and the stories and the combination of his presentation that made you want to listen and made you also go, hey, it would be awesome to have that on my show. So this is all to say, if you do a great job on the opportunity that you're presented, the first podcast that you're doing. And of course, in this case, it was a very big show, right? It can open up opportunities for you. It triggers all of the other people who want access to that. And you begin to now be in demand. You get access to all of their audiences. And it's really cool because you're doing all of this promo by just going on and doing these little presentations essentially on a podcast format. And there's literally hundreds and thousands of people, millions of people at this point for him that are finding out about you for the first time. So that's also encouraging. As somebody as big and accomplished as Daniel is not known. He was not somebody that, had a big personal brand just a couple years ago. Yes, he's been maybe doing this for a long time and may have been known in certain niches and corners of the world, but he was not so mainstream where we all know about him until now. Daniel's strategy of being a guest on podcasts instead of starting his own is super smart if you want a low headache free way to do it. And you kind of want to get a gauge for, do you like doing podcasts? Do people like hearing your episodes? You might want to do a round of that, especially if you can package up your stories and some of your credibility into 3 to 5 bullets. Here are things that I can talk about, I can speak about. And if you can do that, you become a guest that has a ton of real world experience that you're just packaging up and framing for the context of an episode. So I hope this was useful in being able to either take things you can apply to your show or being able to understand and take away the mystique behind why that works, right? Why is it that way? So I hope this gave some clarity. Drop a comment with your thoughts. I would love to hear from you, and make sure to check out some of the free tools in the description below. I think it will make your workflow and your process much, much easier. But thanks again for hanging out. This was fun, and I will see you on the next one.